The tragedy of Air India Flight 182 wasn't just an act of terror, it was a failure of systems, warnings, and coordination, and its consequences reshaped aviation security forever. But for the families, the story never truly ended. Well, we had decided to close off this case, but here we are again. We request you to be silent, as today we're indeed discussing a serious matter. No jokes, please. Hello, everybody. My name is Steve Collins, and today I'm going to be your host for this debate organized by E.O.T.H. We will be starting our competition shortly, so we request you to fasten your seatbelts, because it's about to get turbulent in here.
Welcome to the debate.
It's good to be here.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you here.
Today we are looking at June 23, 1985. It is a date that really marks a profound loss of innocence in aviation security. Air India Flight 182, which was a massive Boeing 747, disappears from radar right off the coast of Ireland. It plunges into the Atlantic Ocean, and 329 souls are lost.
Yeah, a terrible tragedy.
And for nearly 40 years, the history books have been mostly closed on this, sealed with a single pretty terrifying conclusion that this was an act of terror, a bomb planted by extremists.
Right, and yet history is often written by the first people to hold the pen. Today, we are looking at this tragedy through a different lens, specifically the lens of the aircraft accident report by independent investigator John Barry Smith.
Well, there you have it, folks. This is going to be tight.
The central question we are debating today is stark, and frankly, it makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Was Air India 182 actually destroyed by a terrorist bomb, or was it the victim of a catastrophic mechanical failure involving the forward cargo door and a very specific type of faulty wiring?
It is a highly controversial thesis, and one that challenges the findings of the Indian Kirpal Report, the Canadian Aviation Safety Board, and practically every intelligence agency operating at the time. I will be arguing the position held by the official investigations and the vast majority of historical consensus, that this was a coordinated attack involving an explosive device in the forward cargo hold.
And I will be representing the findings of John Barry Smith.
Ooh, looks like it will be f***ing hot in here.
My position is that the physical evidence, or rather, the screaming absence of it, actually points to a mechanical accident. Specifically, that the aircraft's own wiring shorted out, causing the forward cargo door to unlatch in mid-flight, which led to an explosive decompression that tore the plane apart.
So two theories. One relies on a convergence of timeline, motive, and intelligence. The other relies on engineering forensics, aerodynamics, and structural fatigue. Let's just get into it.
Let's do it.
I really want to start by establishing the sheer weight of the consensus I am representing here. When Flight 182 went down, this wasn't just a cursory glance by local authorities. This was a massive international inquiry. India, Canada, the UK, the United States. And the Indian Kirpal report was unequivocal. They concluded that both circumstantial and direct evidence pointed to a bomb.
Right, but...
And even the Canadian board, the KASB, while they were a bit more cautious in their final wording, they admitted the evidence did not support any conclusion other than an explosion in the forward cargo hold. You are asking us to set aside the unanimous view of the world's leading aviation authorities.
Well, unanimous is a very strong word, but it acts as a shield in this case.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Carter, but you certainly cannot offend Mrs. Michelle right here by saying that the word unanimous acts as a shield. No team violations will be tolerated here. Guys, you may continue.
We have to remember the context of 1985. Terrorism was the immediate, overarching fear. But if we look at the actual physics, specifically through Smith's analysis, that consensus starts to show some cracks. You mentioned the word explosion.
Yes.
The core friction point here is vocabulary. In aviation forensics, Explosion and bomb are not synonyms.
But an explosion clearly occurred. I mean, the cockpit voice recorder picked up a sound, the fuselage was completely shattered. That is, by definition, an explosion.
An event occurred, yes. But Smith argues that an explosive decompression, where the hull ruptures and the pressurized air inside rushes out violently, that creates physical signatures that look remarkably like a bomb to the untrained eye. Smith's thesis is incredibly specific. He points to the poly-X wiring used in these early 747s.
The Kapton insulation.
Exactly. This wire was insulated with Kapton, which was notorious for insulation cracking and arc tracking. His theory is that a short circuit actually powered the door unlatch motor in mid-flight, the door unlatched, blew out, and the resulting decompression is what destroyed the plane. Not Semtex, not a bomb.
Look,
Everyone be sharp. Poly-X in the context of aircraft wiring, often referred to as mil-spec M81044-1629, or similar cross-linked polyalkene types, is a type of high-performance wire insulation, but it has a history of significant safety concerns. It is a cross-linked polyalkene insulated wire with a PVDF, polyvinylidene fluoride jacket, designed for airframe and avionics applications. Poly-X has been described as brittle and susceptible to chafing. Due to these issues, it was banned by the US Navy after only 2,000 hours of service life, as 1-inch bare spots were not uncommon. It was implicated by investigators, including Edward Block, in the 1996 TWA Flight 800 crash. While used in earlier military and some aerospace applications, modern aircraft have moved toward more robust insulation materials due to the degradation and brittleness associated with older polyamide and early cross-linked materials.
Look, it's a neat mechanical theory, but it exists in a vacuum. We cannot ignore the Narita connection. This is the cornerstone of the bomb theory for a very good reason. On the exact same day, June 23rd, almost exactly 54 minutes before the Air India crash, a baggage cart exploded at Narita Airport in Tokyo.
I know, it's a striking coincidence.
It is way more than a coincidence. It's a timeline. You have two flights, both originating from Vancouver, both carrying interline baggage, both suffering explosive events within an hour of each other. The investigation established a clear, coordinated plot to bomb two Air India flights simultaneously on opposite sides of the world. To argue that Air India 182 suffered a random 1 in a million mechanical door failure at the exact same moment a related terrorist plot was executing a bombing in Japan, statistically, that is absurdist. You are betting against astronomical odds.
Narrative versus physics. That is the battle here. The Narita timeline creates a really compelling story, a movie plot almost. But Smith argues that you cannot convict the laws of physics based on circumstantial timing. He introduces the concept of hindsight, using United Airlines Flight 811 as a control group.
United 811 happened 4 years later.
Yes, which is crucial. In 1989, United 811, which was another early model 747, suffered a massive hole in the fuselage near Hawaii. The crew radioed that a bomb had gone off. The passengers thought it was a bomb. The investigators initially thought it was a bomb. But because they landed safely, we found out the truth. The cargo door had failed. Smith argues AI-182 fits the mechanical profile of UAL-811 perfectly, but because 182 didn't land, the bomb narrative from Narita was allowed to just completely take over.
You say it fits the profile, but we have to look at the forensic evidence found on the debris. The Kirpal report relies heavily on metallurgy. They found twinning in the metal fragments recovered from the Atlantic.
Mrs. Michelle, could you kindly explain what is metal twining?
Let's define that for the listeners just so we are clear. Twinning is the deformation of metal crystals.
Right. It happens when metal is hit with a massive shock wave. The Kirpal report cited a forensic expert, Mr. Newton, who stated that this specific type of twinning occurs only under extreme shockwave loading. We are talking velocities around 8,000 meters per second. That is a signature of a high-velocity, military-grade explosive. Newton actually called this proof positive. The metal itself testified that it had been hit by a bomb blast.
That sounds incredibly definitive, doesn't it? Proof positive. But Smith tears this apart technically. He notes that twinning is not exclusive to military explosives. It can occur during high-speed metal separation at roughly 25,000 feet per second. When a fully pressurized 747 tears itself open at 31,000 feet, The metal is subjected to violence that mimics a blast entirely.
Are you suggesting the experts simply got the math wrong?
I am suggesting the methodology was fundamentally flawed. Smith highlights a lack of careful selection and laboratory preparation of the samples. They were fishing fragments off the ocean floor, subjecting them to severe corrosion and pressure changes. More importantly, they lacked a control sample. They didn't take a piece of a 747, blow the door off with air pressure, and see if it twinned. Without that control, claiming the twinning proves a bomb it's scientific overreach. And frankly, where is the rest of it?
The rest of what?
A bomb. In a confirmed bombing, like Pan Am 103, you find residue. You find pitting on the metal. You find cratering. You find parts of a timer, a battery, a switch, a fuse. In Air India 182, despite recovering a significant amount of wreckage, they found absolutely nothing. Zero. No chemical residue. No timer parts.
Mr. Carter, maybe you are going out a bit too far now. I suggest you to control your strong language, please.
We are talking about wreckage sitting at a depth of 6,700 feet in the Atlantic Ocean. The currents are incredibly strong. The scattering is immense. The absence of a tiny timer fragment is hardly proof that it didn't exist. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
I get that, but absence of residue is damning. High-velocity explosives leave chemical traces. They gas-wash the metal. You cannot have an explosion that shears a jumbo jet in half but leaves the surrounding panels chemically clean. Smith argues that relying on twinning, which can be caused by decompression, while completely ignoring the total lack of chemical evidence, is cherry-picking data to fit the terror narrative. It is confirmation bias in action.
Let's shift to the behavior of the aircraft then, because the bomb theory explains the suddenness of the catastrophe much better than a mechanical failure. The CVR recorded a loud sound and then silence. The power died instantly. A mechanical failure usually is a cascade. A hydraulic line goes, then a control surface, then the structure starts to fail. This was an instantaneous death of the aircraft systems. That heavily suggests a device designed to sever the nervous system of the plane all at once.
Actually, the instant death of the systems is exactly what predicts a door failure. Think about the anatomy of a Boeing 747.
Sorry to interrupt again, but for the audience's help, we will be displaying the pictures of the anatomy of a Boeing 747 alongside. Thank you.
Where is the main equipment center, the MEC?
It is located under the cabin floor.
Specifically, it is immediately adjacent to the forward cargo door. That is the brain of the airplane. All the wiring looms, the breakers, the routing. If a bomb goes off, shrapnel might hit some wires, sure. But if that massive cargo door blows out, it doesn't just fall off. It rips away the frame and everything attached to it. It physically eviscerates the main equipment center.
So you are saying the door acts like a guillotine for the electrical system?
Precisely. That explains why the data recorders, which are all the way back in the tail, and the transponder, which is up in the nose, died at the exact same millisecond. The connection point for both was the MEC right next to the door. A bomb is chaotic. A door failure at that specific location is a precise decapitation of the electrical grid.
That is a technically sound explanation for the power cut. I will concede that point. But we have to go back to the logistics, the Singh bag. We know a passenger named M. Singh checked a suitcase in Vancouver but never boarded the flight. That is the absolute classic sabotage profile.
It is the classic profile, but Smith's analysis of the baggage handling at Toronto is where the bomb theory falls apart physically.
How so? The bag was transferred. It got on the plane.
It got on the plane, yes, but where on the plane? Smith drilled down into the loading procedures for Canadian Pacific Flight 060 transferring to Air India 182.
For those who are having problems in understanding the events of this video, we request them to check out our previous video, which is an explainer of these events. Continue, please.
If a bag is interlined in Toronto, standard operating procedure dictates it goes into the aft cargo hold, the rear of the plane.
And we know the breakup happened in the front.
Right. Everyone agrees on that. Kirpal, CASB, Smith, the event was in the forward cargo hold. So for the bomb theory to work, this Singh bag had to be mishandled. It had to be put in the wrong container, loaded into the wrong hold, contrary to the manifest and contrary to standard procedure.
You are assuming a level of competence in baggage handling in 1985 that just wasn't there. We know there were security lapses. The X-ray machine broke down that day. The sniffer dogs weren't used effectively. If security was that lax, why is it hard to believe a bag was simply thrown into the wrong hold? Human error is the norm, not the exception.
Because you are stacking improbabilities to support a theory that lacks physical evidence. You are asking us to believe in a magic suitcase. It evaded the X-ray, it evaded the dogs, it was loaded into the wrong hold by mistake, just so it could be in the perfect spot to mimic a door failure, and then, when it finally exploded, it left no chemical residue. Smith argues that the Vancouver bomb is physically impossible because the bag would have been in the aft, effectively ruling it out as the cause of a forward breakup. You are creating a phantom bomb to save the hypothesis.
But if it wasn't the bag, you have to explain the four aircraft theory. This is one of Smith's most ambitious claims. He links Air India 182 to Pan Am 103, TWA 800, and United 811.
He does. And this is where the pattern recognition becomes pretty frightening. All four of these aircraft were early model 747s, 100 or 200 series. All of them had high flight cycles, meaning they were tired ships. All of them used that poly-X wiring I mentioned earlier. And initially, all four were suspected to be bombs.
But Pan Am 103 was a bomb. We found the Semtex. We found the Toshiba radio cassette player parts. To lump Lockerbie in with mechanical failure seems almost revisionist.
Smith isn't denying that a bomb was found in the investigation of Pan Am 103, but he argues that the structural failure mode was suspiciously similar. He points to the debris fields. In all four cases, the aircraft broke up amidships. In all four cases, there was specific, identical shattering of the fuselage skin around the forward cargo door.
And TWA 800? That was a fuel tank explosion. The NTSB spent 4 years and $40 million proving that the center wing tank vapors ignited.
And Smith argues that the fuel tank explanation was a convenient way to explain an explosion without admitting that the 747 had a systemic structural flaw in its doors. Think about it. If you admit the door is the problem, you have to ground the entire world fleet. If it is a spark in a fuel tank, you can issue an AD to fix the wiring and keep flying. Smith points out that TWA 800 had the exact same mild damage to the port side nose and the same door area shattering as AI 182.
That is a massive accusation. You are suggesting a cover-up or at least a willful blindness across multiple international investigations.
I am suggesting that confirmation bias is a powerful drug. Look again at United 811. They knew it was a bomb. The crew said it. The passengers said it. If that plane had crashed into the ocean and the door was never found, it would be listed as a terrorist attack today. We only know it was a mechanical failure because the pilots performed a miracle and landed. Air India 182 didn't get that chance. The evidence, the door, is at the bottom of the sea.
But we have the sound, the CVR.
Yes, the sound.
The UK Air Accidents Investigation Branch representative, Mr. Davis, listened to that tape. He analyzed the frequencies. He initially ruled out a bomb.
He did.
But he also didn't say this is a door latch failing. He said the cause was unidentified. He noted it lacked the low-frequency thud of a high explosive, but he stopped short of exonerating the bomb theory.
But Smith takes that hesitation and runs with it. He compares the AI 182 sound to a known explosive decompression on a DC-10. The acoustic signature matches perfectly. It is a sharp, violent crack of air escaping, not the deep resonance of a chemical detonation.
There is another report we haven't touched on yet, the Garstang report. This was an RCMP investigation. They actually tried to argue the bomb was in the aft cargo hold.
Which is incredible, isn't it?
It shows the confusion. They tried to place it in the aft to explain some of the wreckage distribution, even though the CASB and the Indians said it was forward.
Exactly. If the official investigations are fighting over whether the bomb was in the front or the back, it suggests they are trying to force the evidence to fit the bomb conclusion. The Garstang report contradicts the physical reality of the forward breakup. Smith argues this confusion proves that the bomb theory is a house of cards.
If you remove the requirement to find a bomb, the mechanical explanation, the forward door blowing out, is the only one that fits the wreckage, the sound, and the electrical failure without needing to invent a magic suitcase or a shifting blast zone.
I see the logic, but I cannot get past the human element, the motive. We had Sikh separatists operating in Vancouver. We had explicit threats. We had the Narita explosion. The mechanical theory requires us to believe that these terrorists got lucky, that they plotted a bombing, executed one half of it in Tokyo, and then by sheer divine intervention, the target of their second plot fell out of the sky due to a bad wire at the exact moment they intended to destroy it.
Coincidence is a heavy burden, I agree. But let me ask you this. Is it more likely that a coincidence occurred, or that a known mechanical flaw, one that nearly destroyed United 81 and was present in TW-800, manifested in a high-cycle aircraft? Smith would argue that we should not convict a ghost. Without a timer, without residue, without a fuse, the bomb is a ghost. The bad wiring, the weak latches, the stress on the hull, those are engineering realities.
But sticking to the four aircraft theory, even if TWA-800 and United 811 were mechanical, that doesn't prove Air India was. Each aircraft is unique. Air India 182 was well maintained.
Was it? It was a high-time airframe. It had flown thousands of cycles. Metal fatigue doesn't care about the maintenance log, it cares about physics. And the Poly-X wiring issue was systemic. It wasn't about bad maintenance, it was about bad materials. The insulation degrades over time, inevitably. If those wires arc near the door motor, the motor engages, the latches turn, the door opens. It is not a question of if, but when.
Me, the convergence of the Narita timeline, the check-in irregularities with M. Singh, and the specific twinning metallurgy found by the Indian experts builds a case that is beyond reasonable doubt. The unanimous agreement of the initial investigators stands for a reason. This was an act of malice.
And to me, representing the work of John Barry Smith, the complete absence of tangible forensic evidence, no residue, no parts, is the fatal flaw in the bomb theory. When you strip away the emotion and the narrative of terrorism, you are left with a machine that had a known weakness. The most scientifically rigorous explanation is that the forward cargo door failed, just as it did on United 811. It is a tragedy of engineering, not of ideology.
It is a debate between the probability of a coordinated plot and the inevitability of mechanical fatigue.
Precisely. The legal books are closed, but the technical evidence keeps the door, pun intended, wide open for interpretation.
We encourage our listeners to look at the details of hindsight and the reports we've discussed today. The truth, as always, may lie somewhere in the silence of the deep.
Thank you for listening.
Goodbye.
Echoes of the horizon, where every echo leaves a legacy behind.